Welcome back, team, to another episode of the Path of Purpose podcast. You're joined with the Brotherhood team where we, just like you, are on a path to living a life of purpose. Join with us today, we have Jaguar, who is 42 years old. He has been through a lot of turmoil in his past, however, has completely rectified and rebuilt himself. He was in a party scene with drugs and alcohol, a bit of a womanizer, as he confesses to on the podcast, and has completely rewritten the script for himself in becoming the man he is today. In this podcast, we dive deep into masculinity, where men are going wrong these days, and how we can break free of old family dynamics. This conversation is real, raw, honest, and authentic. And if you're keen to step into that next layer of yourself, then I highly recommend tapping into this one. It is a must listen, and you are going to receive immense value from this. So tune in, and we'll see you in there.
G'day everyone, welcome to episode 9 of the Path of Purpose, and we have a special guest today. We have Jaguar, or he's Pure Jaguar on Instagram.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going to dive into a lot of his work, his story, and yeah, his beliefs, and hopefully learn some things all together. We'll start with, we're actually chatting a little bit before we started about your story, how you were in Sydney in investment, and then how you are now here, you live in Byron Bay. But maybe that story that you were touching on, we wanted to save it for the podcast because it was quite a big story from what was coming up.
Were you an investment banker?
No, I was in alternative investments. So I was more flipping houses, property, things like that in the States at the time and in London. So I wasn't in the investment banking industry. I worked with a private network of guys to do it. So
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it was an interesting one, man. It was kind of that going down the path of what I thought I should do. And I thought once I made money, success, I was dressing in Tom Ford suits and real slick. But the amount of money I was trying to make was directly correlated with the size of the void that was within me of inauthenticity. So I thought that I could plug the hole, so to speak, and fill that inauthentic aspect of myself up with materialistic things like cars and women and drugs and sex and all that sort of stuff. And I always likened that lifestyle to sitting in your car in the garage with your foot on the accelerator, but you're in park. You'll just redline it. Your engine will blow pretty soon. You can't do it forever. So trying to maintain this facade of who we're not over who we truly are, that was an access point to that. It just didn't seem like that at the time. And most crises in life, whether it's death, divorce, family breakup, loss, bankruptcy, all of that is the access point to wholeness. I saw on your rooftop here, it's the Wholeness Center. As soon as I saw it, I was like, these guys already, I'm liking this, because that's what I help move men to, is the path to wholeness. And you can only do that, in my opinion, through an immense amount of suffering to realize what is inauthentic, which life is trying to take away from you, which lands you at authenticity.
That's cool. That's some wisdom there already. But just following the story, so you were in Sydney investing, and then what was that point for you where you talk about that kind of breaking point where you're redlining it, and then that suffering? Where was that change?
Yeah, it was kind of a gradual process. The metaphor of you put a frog in boiling water, you turn up the heat and it just kind of stays in it. There was this deeper and deeper sense of dissatisfaction with my life. I had everything, multiple millions of dollars, women, clothes, everything, the ideal life. And I ended up breaking my leg when I was about to go overseas, and I was made to sit with myself. And I realized how toxic the people, well, I shouldn't say toxic, they were just adapting to their own internal environment, but the behavior wasn't healthy. And I realized that I couldn't be around these people, because when I broke my leg, I wasn't drinking or doing drugs. And when you remove that, it's kind of like the mask comes off, and then you just see this. And I remember I was in Coogee, and I was going to pick my sister up from the airport, and I was dead straight, and I saw my mates, they were all drinking, and I went, this is ugly. How they were acting and talking to women and talking to each other, talking over each other. You go to a pub and you get really drunk people. I'm sure everyone that listening has experienced that. But I really saw this, and I just went, I can't do this anymore. So I ended up moving to the mountains in New Zealand on my own. and exiling myself for 7 months to deal with everything and figuring out what I was supposed to do.
South
Wow.
Island?
Sorry?
South Island?
The very south of the North Island in Wellington, about an hour outside of Wellington.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I had to go and face myself, and I realized that was the start of it. And every man needs to face themselves.
Wow.
And so I'd been stripped back, and life stripped me of everything, where I said I was trying to force staying in the investment industry, trying to get deals done. Nothing was working. And then when I went to New Zealand, I wrote out a list one day, and it was something along the lines of, what am I good at? What am I reading? What am I researching? What do people compliment me on and tell me I'm good at? And I looked at it and I went, I'm meant to be a therapist. And it was just in that moment. So I came back to Sydney, started a Bachelor of Integrative Psychotherapy, and then it just went from there.
Far out. What a journey. It's like that hero's journey. You like went away, went into the cave of your inner self,
Yeah,
and then come back with the wisdom.
absolutely.
That's cool. So now your work now trends a lot around masculinity, right, and relationships and subconscious sort of work.
Yeah.
Maybe to ask a question to begin with, like, what do you believe like traditional masculinity is?
I think masculinity is objective. I think we're seeing more and more these days that it's becoming this fluid nuance. This word nuance does my head in, because you just go, oh, there's nuance to it. It's like, well, let's just get to the truth. The truth isn't nuanced. Only subjective opinions are nuanced. And I think this real moral relativistic approach to society, meaning morals are not, relative. They're objective. Truth is objective. What's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong, in my opinion. And I think that's instilled in us. And I think the people that don't like that claim moral relativism, that my feelings are the truth. Masculinity, Harvard did a long-term study for, I think it was, and people can correct me on this if I'm wrong, 3 decades with 26,000 people. And they had a list of stereotypical masculine traits. It's independent, it's being bold, it's not easily influenced, it's analytical, it's leadership, it's logic, it's reason. These are stereotypical masculine traits. It's like magnetism in physics, or some of the laws of physics. These are immutable. These are things that we absolutely adopt. It's our biology and our instinct. There are also stereotypical traits of femininity as well, which is they're more codependent, they're more relational, they're more collaborative. Men will cooperate, women will collaborate. So collaborate is, let's all get together to finish the job. Men will be, we got to cooperate with each other, because there's always the threat of violence or aggression breaking out if we don't cooperate with each other. So men are better at conflict resolution than women most of the time. So these traits came through. I should have bought the list. I was thinking about this in the car on the way up. So there's stereotypical masculine, stereotypical feminine. What we're seeing now, if you do the research on what constitutes healthy masculinity, it's all around the stereotypical feminine traits. Okay, so when we look at that, normal, traditional, biological masculinity is seen as toxic. And now all of a sudden it's bridged over into this idea that masculinity is malleable, it's flexible, it's somewhere between masculinity and femininity, which is, it just doesn't work like that. We're in easy times at the moment. I actually think we're heading into hard times. So it's like the saying,
What's
hard
easy times? Just sorry to interject, but when you say easy times, what's easy times?
Well, we don't have to struggle anymore. We can get everything basically order anything on an app. We're plugged into our phones all the time. We're not under the threat of getting killed by animals for food. We can watch TV all the time. We're lazy, overweight, fat, entitled, victimhood. That's easy. Well, actually, I don't think it's easy, but for the most part, they seek comfort. It's a very comfortable lifestyle. We can get on our phones, order a taxi and go somewhere, and then hop on a plane and fly somewhere. I fly business and first class. I can put my feet up and fly and sleep while I'm flying for 12 hours if I want to. I can go to a pharmacy and get drugs to ease my pain.
Yeah.
I can go to a doctor and get subscribed pills if I'm not feeling good.
Comfort crisis.
Big time, man.
And there's not much growth in the comfort, is there?
There's no growth in comfort.
So, like, where do you think men are, like, going wrong, or, like, in their search to become more masculine? Like, where do you see that?
The problem is that we're listening to women define masculinity, and women don't know how to be a man. It's that simple. I don't know how to be a woman, and I'm sure everyone in this room, we're all men, don't know how to be a woman. We can intellectually try to assess that and say, this is what makes a woman. I don't talk on my account about what makes a woman, or I could turn a little girl into a woman. I can't. I can turn a boy into a man because we're all men here. That's our job, is to do that. Men teach boys how to become men, not women. And now in our society, men have become a lot softer, more feminine, more emotionally and feelings driven, which I'm not saying that you can't do that. Go and do that. I know what it takes to be successful, and I know what's worked for me and thousands of men I've walked through things to help them get to that point. When you're fully authentic, your masculinity doesn't become a point of shame. It becomes something that you become proud of to embody, that you don't fall prey to social narratives. Robert Greene was talking about this, that there were studies done that the more testosterone, the more masculine you are, the less you're able to be influenced by social narratives. And we were talking about this before around how badly men are doing these days. There was a podcast, Diary of a CEO, and there was a masculinity debate on there.
Okay.
And they were talking about how badly boys are doing. You know, men are more likely to commit suicide. They're more likely to be homeless. They're victims of war. Women are out earning men these days. So this pay gap thing is no longer there. The idea that men have more rights than women, that hasn't happened in our generation. It hasn't. Like, nowhere in the Western world do men have more rights than women. In fact, I think women have it easier now. You look at false rape allegations and domestic violence accusations, there's almost no follow-up towards punishment for women if men get that. Women can say that a man, there's this guy, I can't remember his name, he does a podcast, which is the Broken Fathers podcast, and he was a military vet, and you see videos of the ex-wife, I think, or ex-girlfriend, physically assaulting him, and then she used the fact that he was in the military to say he had PTSD, threatened to kill her, which has been proven to be a lie from my understanding, and now he can't see his daughter. But nothing happens to her. So we see these contrasts in society where, based on historical aspects, and women have been oppressed and treated really badly, and I'm not saying that was okay, but we don't really live in a society where that's very prevalent anymore. In fact, I would say men have got it worse now in society based on living standards and what can happen towards men. This is just an honest conversation that needs to happen. And most of the time, it's, even in this Diary of a CEO, the response to it, the podcast, women were saying, oh, we've only just gotten good now, so why do we have to make it bad that men are now suffering? It's like, why can't we just all look after each other? You know, and we have to do that by assessing the truth of the fact of what's going on based on the statistical evidence of what's happening. Then we look at, inmates in the States, 80% of them come from single mother households.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No masculine figure.
Mothers are twice as likely statistically to abuse their children than men are. Twice as likely. Women are also twice as likely to murder their own children than fathers. These are super uncomfortable. These are statistics on childwelfare.org. You can go and find them and research them yourselves. Put in the chat GPT, it'll tell you.
Yeah,
40, stuff. I think 40, so either 40 or 36% of women are reported to abuse their own children, and men are at like 19 or 21%. These are the stats. It's not something I'm okay with on either side. No one should abuse a child.
No.
Where is the origin of this for women to have higher stats than what these are surprising me. These stats are surprising me.
They're uncomfortable.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing them to the table. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
But where do you feel like you spoke into woman oppression in the midst of that? And do you feel that, because I hold a belief as well where I think men have oppressed women.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're seeing this pay gap and all this increase where, the women are having to stand up into more masculine traits because they have, they've been forced to because men have utilised their dominance through strength, and just being more naturally stronger than women, to oppress women. And so now I feel like there's this kind of fight back against that. And so, where do you feel that, this behaviour of all these stats that are coming through from women doing this, do you feel that where's the root origin or the root cause of that?
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of answers to that, because if you look at, men have the sort of the mortgage on force, women do over children though. So you look at where it goes down the chain. So we look at the nature of men oppressing women as adults. We're stronger, so we can use force. But mothers are stronger than children. So where does that argument start and finish? Does the problem come from?
What about the proportion of time that a mother would spend with her child preferred to a father?
Yeah, I mean, you can look at that as well, but that doesn't make it okay to be abused. An abusive person is an abusive person. You know, there should be no instances of abuse.
Yeah.
No.
So we can look at it, and it's a good question, because people challenge me on that, and they go, well, what about the amount of time? It's like, so what? You know, that doesn't make it okay if a man abuses a woman because he spends more time with her. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we look at these correlations, and what it is when we start to assess these, there's the aspect of what I see as the devouring mother in society, which is there is a war on masculinity, and it's trying to devour masculinity. It's trying to erase masculinity. And
I would agree. Yeah, and we've spoken about this on the testosterone crisis. And
in foods, plastics,
Totally.
you know, all of that.
100%. Yeah.
You know, strong men are harder to control.
Yeah.
Men that know who they are harder to control. So the easiest way is to confuse everyone about what a man is.
Yeah.
It's
when
pretty
you go
simple.
into the devouring mother, like what exactly is that?
That is a construct where a mother will devour the potential of a child so it doesn't reach its full authenticity. It can be a boy or a girl, but it's more impactful on our sons. And so what happens is we get the mummy's boy, or we get the nice guy, the people pleaser. These are results of a devouring mother. So the greatest sacrifice a parent makes is to offer the child up to the world to reach its potential, which means I need to let you go so we can separate.
Yeah.
In tribes, this is what they used to do, rites of passage.
Yeah.
And the difficult part about that is why rites of passage don't really work anymore, is because we're in a different time. And we're in a different time that requires different tools to create different weapons to fight a different war. There was no attack on masculinity back then. So now mothers are devouring the children even more to keep them closer to them. And then when you have boys that grow up that are in too much feminine energy, they become the nice guy. They become the people pleaser. They adopt typical feminine traits, because what they'll do is it's called becoming a cuttlefish in sort of the modern internet slang. They adopt feminine characteristics so they can try to get in and sleep with the women. Like the cuttlefish, from my understanding, disguises himself like a female and waits till all the males go and then tries to sleep with the female.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, you've heard of it? Yeah.
So how do men break free of that?
Yeah, well, you see, what should be done is most boys will start to seek masculine programming around 7 to 10 years old. Okay, they'll start to want to push away from the mother. Then when they become difficult teenagers, the mother doesn't want them to leave the nest. And so the boy trying to leave, that's part of the process of splitting from the mother. What they would do in tribes is they would take the boys, the men would take the boys and the mothers would be in on it, and they would become gender opposite to the mother. This is what we have to, this is called the individuation process. To become an individual means to become whole. It means to be undivided internally. It's indivisible. That's what individual means. But we're living in a world of collectivism where it's just groupthink and hive mind, where the individual isn't allowed to escape and break free. That's why when I talk about masculinity, I just talk about it from a traditional sense with a little bit more of a deeper understanding of the programming that comes with it and splitting from the mother and how that operates in the psyche and the subconscious defense mechanisms and negative emotional addictions is a bit of a different framework than what's out there. But if I just say the one thing you should do to a woman is learn to say no as a man, mate, I get flamed for it. Because generally people that are in a hive mind group think that just latch on to an idea, they don't like the individual that stands alone because it threatens their entire own psyche and their own internal belief landscape that, oh, hang on, I need everyone to survive and this guy's standing alone. It's like when you're in a toxic family system, there's the black sheep, the lost child, the golden child, and the enabler. One of them tries to get out and everyone tries to pull them back in. There's no difference. That's the micro exists in the macro. So it happens in government, it happens with identity politics, it happens in families, happens all over the place, and you'll end up developing it inside yourself until you start to learn that the whole process of life is to become whole. It's not about becoming a good person, it's about becoming a whole person. And that's all things that are included.
Embracing the light and the dark.
Light and the dark.
Yeah.
Light and the dark.
What how like I love your oh shit sorry I love your how you call it the road to wholeness as well.
Yeah.
And so in that road to wholeness, the combination of both masculine and feminine, the unification of the two, how the masculinity, like I can see why your road to having men like learn more about their masculinity is so important in a world where we are in a crisis of that, and there is everything out there trying to reduce men's testosterone, trying to I want to use the word, make it more beta, you know, like less alpha. And I think one of our missions on the back of our shirt, that we went through is redefining the alpha male, and that being one that isn't toxic, that doesn't have that toxicity, but still alpha in the way that they hold themselves with wholeness. And so, how important is it? Like, what aspects of the feminine of I know that we're predominantly going into masculinity here, but I want to know the aspects of compassion, the traits of compassion, and these ones that we learn from the mother. What parts are essential to learn, and then when do we break off and realize, hang on, I'm getting over mothered now?
Yeah, good question. So I see the main thing that underpins all that for men is containment. So containment is there's nothing wrong with having emotions. I talk about the difference between processing emotions and being ruled by feelings. If you go back in your history and you look at every decision that you made that you regret, every single one of them will be done where emotions override logic. That's why we have the saying, cooler heads prevail, sleep on it. Let's come back to this when we've calmed down. That's when we apply logic and reasoning over emotional states. People have road rage and they lose their shit over something that didn't actually happen. Something almost happened. Think about how out of control someone is with that. That's an emotionally reactive response. So I see it as, for these aspects where we can look at it from a masculine trait, gentleness with those that are weaker than us. We don't spill out our anger and become uncontained. I just posted a reel about this morning. To become, we don't express our anger towards someone to make them feel scared. We can go, you're pissing me off right now. I'm stepping away because I don't want to go there. I don't want to say something I regret. So this is the art of containment. This is what men need to really operate from, is the idea of the whole vulnerability thing as well. That's celebrated too. And that's a bit of George Orwell doublespeak, right? Which is a book called 1984. And he said, war is peace, knowledge is ignorance, freedom is slavery, vulnerability is strength. Vulnerability means to be wounded. I would say what it means to be strength is learning to have the awareness and be fully self-responsible. Don't spill out onto those around you, and be honest about what you're actually going through without making it incumbent on someone else to satisfy your childlike psychology in the form of holding space for you, especially as a man with your woman, unless you're going through, a death or a major tragedy. That's different. But if you're just having a hard day and you can't handle your stresses, like you guys own a gym, get into the gym and lift something heavy. Go have a roll on the jiu-jitsu mats. Just go for a walk with your dog. Do something else. Women aren't actually meant to hold space for us. And when we make our women our therapists, we fall more into the feminine aspect. That's where we become, quote unquote beta. I'm not a big fan of those terms, but for lack of a better one.
Yeah. So you would not agree with like coming to a woman with your problems?
No.
Like you're not speaking about that. How would you go about maybe discussing if there is an issue within you, there is a problem, and maybe they're trying to get it out of you? Like, how would you go about discussing it in a way where you're not dumping on them, but you're letting them know where you're at, but like, if you know what I mean? Yeah.
Do a relationship check-in once a week. I do it with my partner. Every Sunday we do a relationship check-in. We talk about how our week was, what was good, what we could do for improvement, and what we did that the other person didn't like, and we seek to understand. That's it, rather than just, the boys on the job site were giving me shit today. I've got no money and I'm going to start crying or whatever. Like, you don't take those and dump them on your partner. Yeah. Keep it, again, contained. We do it every Sunday. We did one yesterday. My partner and I had a little bit of stress between us the day before. She said something I didn't like, and I was like, I don't like the way you're doing that. I don't want to indulge in this conversation. She kept going with me to push it. And I was like, that's enough. I've said no. Stop it. That's it. That's where we go with it. Then we spoke about it the next day. She was feeling a bit sensitive about it, and we sat on the couch for, I think it was an hour and a half. And I said, what I'd like you to do is when this comes up, I want you to sit there and go, how can I understand him better? Because I come from that position with you, and I want you to do that with me. If you do that in your relationship and say, I'm not going to make this about me, how do I understand her better? So she might be, generally I see with women that want to know everything that's going on with a man, they grew up in an environment where the father was unstable, so predictability was very, very inconsistent. And so what they're doing is reliving out a childhood wound, and then they want you to be responsible for certainty and predictability within her because she's not used to be able to trusting her own self. That's generally, in a nutshell.
Yeah, man.
That's generally what it's for, which is okay. And I've said this to my partner. I said, if you just need some reassurance, just say, hey, I need some reassurance. And I'll give you reassurance. It's just, this is what happens when you care about someone and seek to understand them. Most people are so busy trying to make the other person, your partner, the absent parent, instead of going, nah, like I'm a man. I'm a 42-year-old man. I'm fucking responsible for my own shit. She's not responsible for my shit.
So where do you think most men go wrong in relationships? Do you think that's it, or is it another area? Or
Yeah. To say it really simply, they want the woman to be their mother.
Yeah, that's
Men want unconditional love from their mother, from their partner. And this is where we go wrong. Most men want that. I want to be loved unconditionally, just like my mother loved me. And it doesn't happen, so he puts her into the mother state. So then he doesn't have to be responsible for his own shit because he hasn't separated from his mother. You see where mothers make decisions for their sons and they're in their 30s and 40s. That shouldn't be happening. Shouldn't be happening. Like the man's supposed to split from the mother.
Yeah.
This is ancient.
And to split from the mother, do you have to travel somewhere? Or is it like,
that
I know there's
can be part of
psychological
it. Yeah, look, that can be part of it. You'll see a lot of men when they're ready to, they'll go travel. They'll go away, but that does help in a little bit of a way, but you have to split internally from where you're like your mother. Okay. So if, your mother's overbearing, if your mother's cruel, whatever aspect she is, you will adopt those because it'll be imprinted on you as a child and in the womb. You have to separate from those parts and stop doing that. And once you do, it can be a painful process. I've done it. Nearly killed me. It was
How do you even
intense.
do it? Is it just like
you need someone that can help you walk through that. So there's the subconscious, which are defense mechanisms, and there's the I'm not versus the I am. What I'm not is I'm not female. And so anything that I'm not is going to form in a program. So it might be I'm not loved with an addiction to rejection. I've done something wrong with an addiction to criticism. I don't matter with an addiction to deprivation. I'm not going to be okay with an addiction to fear of loss. All of these are structures that are in our identity. I'll give you a more real example. I worked with someone recently who had gut issues his whole life. His mother had gestational diabetes in the womb. He took on the eating, the digestion issues his whole life. We resolved the I'm not enough program. These digestion issues went away.
Wow.
It's pretty much that simple. It's based in language, linguistics, subconscious. So it's like the saying, if you stare into the abyss will stare back, meaning the abyss, the darkness, the unconscious, that is the feminine aspect. And the unconscious aspects that are imprinted on us by our mother in the womb. The womb's the abyss. That's what we have to go into. And it's like slaying the dragon. It's why in fairy tales and Lord of the Rings and all those kinds of books and movies, you slay the dragon. The dragon is the mother to become wholeness. Not that the females are dragons from that perspective, but it's the mythical conquest of men, like you mentioned earlier, the hero's journey. People think that was a bit of a hero's journey, but the true hero's journey is usually what will happen is you will bring in a woman similar to your mother that will leave you and break you wide open. That's the process. So if we go into these difficult breakups and divorces, where men have this deep loss afterwards is not the loss of the partner, it's the loss of the identity that they had, which was like the mother that this woman represented, who's now broken open for you to process.
Interesting, yeah.
So, hell, man.
I've kind of had a similar ex-partner that was similar to my mum in many ways. And it's kind of resembled a bit what you're talking about. So it's interesting, eh?
Yeah, it's brutal too, man.
Yeah.
It's brutal. I had that as well. I had a former partner exactly like my mother. And I was holding on so tightly to my defiant nature towards my mother. So this is like, you'll get men that will fall into it with the mother, and the rare one that comes along that fights the mother from day one. That was me. I had a very, very cruel and aggressive mother from 5 years old, constantly be at her. I just wouldn't let her try to break my boundaries. But because of what I'd taken on in the womb, that was already there. So I became very aggressive like her. And then over time, that started to dissolve and dismantle. And then I had a woman come in that was like life was like tapping me on the shoulder saying, come on, wake up. Then it's like shaking me. Then it's slapping me. Then it's like, ugh, send in the fucking woman to get it done, because I wasn't getting it done. I wasn't listening, right?
Yeah.
And it ended up being the most brutal experience I'd ever had, but the greatest gift I'd ever received too, because she freed me. And so once you're through it, you'll start to want to embody traits of peace, respect. You'll want harmony in your life. You'll want a state of ease and emptiness, not emptiness from a place of dissatisfaction, but a state of clarity and settling. The dust will settle. Whereas before, man, the more toxic the woman I could bring in, the better. I was like, bring them on. More tattoos, the fire, the crazy, the borderline chicks, all the ones. Like, if they weren't rocking up to my house at 2 a.m. in the morning, buzzing my door while I got another woman there, I was like, she's not crazy enough. I need someone crazy. So it was just a process that I went through.
Yeah.
And now my partner's beautiful. She's just calm. She's stable. We rarely ever have disagreements. It's so easy, and that's the true feminine.
Yeah, cool.
That's the true feminine. It brings peace into your life. I thought that was just like the fairy tales I was reading.
Yeah.
But once you get it and you individuate as a man and you become stable and grounded and stoic and calm and purpose-driven and authentic, you'll just attract in a beautiful feminine woman. And you'll stop bringing in the boss babes and the borderline ones that are super difficult and all those respectfully, that you can live however you want. But I've found those women are just really difficult to masculine men. Like, I don't gel with them because they're argumentative, they're disagreeable, they become a pain in the ass. And when you get around a beautiful, soft, feminine woman, man, it's like a sunrise. It just captivates you. It's so easy. It's magic, you know?
I think a lot of men need to hear that, like, just trust in your ability to attract that right woman, hey?
Yeah.
And it comes from within. You said right at the start, need to face myself.
Yeah.
And, when you say you had to face yourself, what was your process towards facing yourself?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I got sick of my own shit. And so the first thing I did was, environment's really important. So you guys because you're based in health, you're all pretty solid guys. You've developed a good environment that will foster good things. When you're hanging around people that are doing drugs, womanizing, sleeping around, that's not a good environment. The first thing you have to do is exorcise yourself from the environment. EXORCISE, not exercise.
Exorcist.
Exorcist, yeah. You have to exorcise yourself from the environment, and then you have to, I would say, learn to be alone. Not many people are good at being alone, because when you're alone, the stuff starts to come up. And when you're good at being alone, you can go, all right, what is it? The next stage is to take responsibility for everything in your life. I always say it's wild how every single place you go, your problems are always with you. Mm-hmm. They're not from the outside world. Like, your whole life is your mind. Mm. When I discovered this, I said, the amount of money that I have, the type of women that I'm bringing in, the way that I dress, how much I'm sleeping, the type of food that I'm eating, everything is me, because I'm just like this oscillating, energetic aspect, which is just attracting things in around me. So wherever I go, my problems are always there. So I'm like, okay, I'm the biggest problem in my life. Cool. Yeah. When you can admit that and take full self-responsibility, then you start to become more powerful. You break out of victim consciousness, out of reactive consciousness, and you become a victor and a creator. So there's reaction and creation. It's the same word. The C is just in a different place. Mm-hmm. But energetically, it's very powerful in its difference. So reaction it's the world's fault. And we're seeing that en masse at the moment. Like, the victim culture is huge out there.
Yeah.
Instead of just going, so I hurt my back and my knee over the last 18 months from jiu-jitsu. Now, and I go, okay, cool. So I can't train jiu-jitsu. I've got injuries, all good. What can I do instead? It may not be these intense workouts that I do anymore. I remember I deadlifted 30 kilos, and it was the most satisfying thing that I've done for a long time, just because I overcame an injury to get there. And I was like, fuck, this is awesome. I can do, 5 or 6 kilometer walks with my dog. And I'm going, I may not be able to do what I used to do, and I want to get back there, but
Yeah.
what can I do?
Yeah, that's that growth mindset compared to that victim mindset.
Yeah, what can I do? Sure, I don't get the release from the walk that I did from a 60-minute round with my old training partner, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing what I can. I'll do the Stairmaster, which is the most feminine machine you can do, I think, because I can't do the rower. But yeah, it's like, I go, cool, I can get a sweat on.
Yeah.
Just being grateful for stuff like that and doing what you can. And that's more important than anything else.
Yeah.
So we start from that perspective. Once we start to remove that, then we can start to address, well, who am I not? This is when people go, I want to meet someone, I want a relationship. Okay, tell me what you want from a relationship. And they're like, love and safety and trust. I'm like, why don't you start with the question, what am I no longer available for? Mm-hmm. Because everyone wants something as a reaction to what they don't want. Mm-hmm. And so if you get your needs on a piece of paper and say you want love, trust, safety, write the opposite, and the opposite is what you're attracting in. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to get away from that by getting someone else to absolve you of that. But instead, it's like, well, who am I not? Where am I being inauthentic? This, especially as a man, this is facing ourselves. Then we start to come into the good stuff and, okay, well, now I'm dissolving some programming. I'm reaching some genuine insight in my life. Mm-hmm. I'm cleaning up my life. I'm taking responsibility. I'm not at the whim of social conditioning, social narratives of programming. Now I feel pretty good. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a process of removal. There's a beautiful quote, it's my favorite one, which when Michelangelo was asked about the statue of David, all of his peers said, how did you create this perfect representation of man? And he goes, I didn't create David. He was already in the marble. I just took away everything that wasn't David.
Yeah,
and it's perfect. It's such a perfect description. Everyone's trying to go out there to do something. And I'm like, no, go in there to remove and not do something anymore. Yeah. It's about removal to create space. And what happens is authenticity emerges from that place.
I think the removing the options is like, because you may know what you want, but then just being unaware of what you don't want leaves so many options of what they could be. And then it's just like, but when you're coming back to that, that truth, that straight, narrow direction, it's because you're so fucking aware of what you don't want, you know what you do want, and so it just only leaves one path.
Yeah. It's powerful. So when I'm getting people to set values, most people don't know their values. There's a difference between values and needs. Values, if you live by your values, when something goes up in values, it appreciates. So you start to appreciate yourself more, which increases self-esteem and thus self-worth. So you have your values. Like, my number one value in life is peace. So I don't sit there and say, well, what do I have to do to get peace? Because then that automatically assumes that I'm in a state of conflict. Because I'm trying to get peace rather than, okay, well, what am I not going to allow in that will disrupt the peace that's already there? So when I was doing this, it was, well, I'm not going to date women that are chaotic, that come with, 5 kids from 6 different dads, Like, if I see the chaos, that's cool. You don't need to change, but I'll just go in a different direction. So I wouldn't tolerate that. Respect is another one. So I don't tolerate people that throw insults or want to degrade or emasculate me. I just go, cool, you're not in my life. It's okay. You can live your life, but I'm going to go this way. And I started to live by that, and it just became so much more, my internal structures became so much more solid. There was one woman I was speaking to for 5 months that had a go at me because I said, I know what I bring to the table. And she called me a conceited arsehole. And I said, I'm out. I'm not going to keep entertaining this with you. If you can express your worth, and this is typical, like, women can express their worth, it's celebrated. The minute a man does, it's like, oh, you're an arrogant arsehole. You're full of yourself. That kind of thing. It's a pretty common thing.
I feel that. I feel like, there's you holding this standard for yourself. Yeah. And therefore people are either raising their standards to meet you in that because they're willing. Yeah. Otherwise, they're just not for you. And that's a standard that you hold yourself to, which I think is fantastic. Like, one of our brand mottos here as well is like raising the standards of men, Yeah. And the other thing I feel is when you say like a woman is celebrated in that, when she has high standards, I definitely feel like I definitely want to empower women. I definitely, but there's a difference between, empower, and I think this is a misconstrued sort of thought as well. I think an empowered woman is dangerous, as well, and they are, fucking oath, with every sort of, but that's only coming from a place of like a man's self-worth of like not being enough. Yeah. Where's the balance and the dichotomy between, you know, a healthy masculine, you know, and then also an empowered divine feminine. You know, how do they interplay?
Yeah.
And the importance of that.
Yeah, really good question. So my partner, I helped her build really strong internal structures emotionally through boundaries. So boundaries are also to keep the good in, not just keep the bad out. Most people construe boundaries as, no, I'm not going to tolerate that and you're going to change. I'm not a big believer in that because boundaries have to have consequences. Most people just have a boundary, which is a suggestion without a consequence. So it's not a true boundary, or it's to dominate someone else. So with relating to that aspect, what you'll find is people, especially women, empowered women are great, but the most powerful women are the most feminine ones. They're the ones that we go and die and fight wars for. Wars have been started for powerfully feminine women. The empowered woman nowadays is considered the boss babe, the career chick, that sort of thing. So it's even giving women a bit of disempowering. And yeah, you could say they're strong and independent, that don't need a man, all that stuff. Cool. Be independent. That's fine if that's what you want. But I've seen this, and one of the funny things that I use as an example, the body positivity movement amongst females, and women are saying, you're a goddess, all this sort of stuff. And you go, okay, cool. Like, if that's how you want to live and let live, that's fine. But you see, imagine if we were sitting in and go, all right, I'm just in my Zeus today. I'm a god. Like, or you're going, I'm in my Apollo when you're walking down the beach with your shirt off going like this.
Yeah.
You go, shut the fuck up, dude.
Arrogant,
like, you know, we wouldn't support that. So there's got to be this empowered from a place of reality as a power, as opposed to this entitled grandiosity from a place of delusion. There's a big distinction between those. So a truly empowered and feminine woman won't be a threat to a masculine male. No. You know, it'll only be to kind of the mummy's boy or the more feminine male that they will be a threat to, because they'll try to make her his mother. And it just doesn't work like that. So I think healthy standards based on values. So you look at morals. Morals are generally social. Values are individual. Needs are personal. Boundaries are what sort of keeps or standards, I like to say. Boundaries and standards are what keeps these intact, and consequences are what keep people out from trying to violate that. So if you run down that chain, you get your values right, and you get standards to protect the values, self-worth increases. You can't help but bring people in that have a similar energetic vibrational print, because magnetism will dictate that in the world of physics, that you'll bring someone in that's a match to you for that.
Yeah, how good is it that when you're just vibrating in a certain way, and then
I can give you knuckles, bro. That was fucking like, that was man. Like, just sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, when you're vibrating a certain way and you do attract that, like that's just it. And often, like, say for guys out there that are single, like, how would you say to them to go about getting into a healthy relationship?
I would say develop a healthy relationship with yourself. Like, do that first. You know, the first thing you should do as a man, make money. It gets bastardized in our world, and I think that you have to be a provider. You know, women are out earning men. They don't need men. So the way that you become needed is you become a better provider than the woman can provide for herself. It's pretty simple. It's just go do that. Go aim for $250,000 a year, $500,000, whatever it is. Go and do that. Money should be, realistically, if you don't have money as a man, you're very limited in your ability to provide resources. That's it. Men need to be useful. Make yourself useful. The more resource you have, the more people you can help.
So what do you think about guys like partying and stuff? Like, because some guys, you know, they think, they'll go out there and meet a chick, they're going to go to a party, you know, but it's like they should be focusing probably more on making themselves useful and being a provider in that. And
Look,
naturally...
I think that's going to happen. You know, I used to do that, so I can't sit there and say, don't do that like I'm holier than thou. I did it, and I did it way too much. So, but I didn't meet anything quality in that space. Nothing quality came from that space. Everyone's kind of sad and lonely and depressed. That's why they're out doing it. Yeah. I would even say steer away from dating apps. You know, 90% of women go for 10% of the men. I did a post on this.
I saw that.
Yeah, it was a pretty powerful. It was pretty funny. I had one woman say to me that stats or not, I don't care. This is hogwash or something. I'm like, this is data from Tinder. I think they have the biggest market share of dating statistics in the world. Like, deny it or not, don't worry about it. I would not use dating apps either. what that promotes is instant gratification for the search of the most addictive drug on the planet, which is romantic love and validation. If you're getting into that, you're just going to go, okay, the romantic love stage is over. I'm going to bounce now and just find someone else. I'm just going to find someone else. Back to the comfort thing we spoke about earlier. It's comfortable. I've got access to however many women I want at all times. And that was one of my downfalls. Like, I was a womanizer for a long time. And for the last couple of years, I'd been on the, not the hunt, but the creation of the right partnership so I could have a family. Because I do believe as you get older as a man, when you've got a lot of access to women, that becomes very boring very quickly. And then you want to settle down. This is where I think when men actually access this sort of higher archetypical spiritual level, which you could call it the king. I don't really like that term because it's thrown around too much. But there is an archetypal structure in our psyche which is represented by the king. And when you want to do that, you want to have a family and provide and become useful. And so I would say work on yourself, develop a healthy relationship with yourself, work with me as well and do some of my stuff and just learn about how you can shift the perception from the external to the internal, take responsibility, all the stuff I said earlier. The women will come after that. Don't make your focus a woman. Make your focus becoming a useful member of society with embodying healthy masculinity, being useful. The woman will come then and it will just be, oh, okay, cool. I'll choose you now.
Yeah, it's like attract and don't chase.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of the
Chasing
things.
is, you shouldn't chase women. You just shouldn't. It's desperate. It's women.
Yeah.
There is a thing in biology called hypergamy, which is women like to date across and up. And so they will literally look for someone that they can look up to.
Yeah.
This is why become a better provider, become successful, look after your body, develop some sort of reputation where men look up to you and respect you and women admire you as well. If you get that, you're sorted.
Yeah, and when you talked about, you said settling down, that's like something about spirituality to the process. Like, that's kind of what I feel in myself now as I get older. I'm 29, but I feel a lot more like I just want to settle down. But like, what does that mean and entail to you? And like that change from maybe not settling to settling. Like, what's the thing there?
That's a good question. So my life was all about me for a long time. Freedom, doing whatever I want. Like I was a bit of a lone wolf for a long time. And as you come into, I believe, a psychological maturation, you want to look after other people. You want to help people. It's not about putting yourself at the bottom of the list. It's rather putting others' needs at the top of your list, because masculinity is about sacrificing. We are the disposable sex out of the two. That's why we go to war. It's why we protect those more vulnerable than us. And I think that's a really important thing for a man. Married men, I was listening to something earlier, married men, they make more money, they're happier for longer, they're more dedicated to purpose. Childless men don't do very well based on the statistical evidence of that. So having a family it's like our ultimate purpose, I think, because what's nature's one imperative? It's to continue. So women that don't want to have kids, it's going against their biology. They're the creators. They're the temple and the matrix for creation. They bring children into the world. If they're not doing that, they're going against. It's almost controversial. I can't believe I have to say it's controversial.
I know.
But they're here to be mothers. C.S. Lewis said it the best. All roles to exist to support the one most important role. That's the homemaker. In other words, the mother. You know, and women that don't want to have children don't. I have clients that don't want to. I've worked with super successful women, amazing women. They're great. That's okay, but it doesn't change the biological imperative to continue, to propagate the species. All nature wants to do is continue. That's it. So if you're not doing that, you're not in line with biological imperative.
Yeah, not really in line with nature.
Yeah, you're not in line with nature. So if you don't want to do that, you got to look at where am I out of nature, with my own nature, my own internal nature, what's going on. And generally that will be when you haven't fully split from the mother or done the work on your childhood to resolve it yet.
I mean, each their own as well, but it's like, it
live
feels
however
like
you want to live.
Yeah, feels like it's such a natural thing for me to have a family and have children and all that. And then I think sometimes the females as well, they might it might be a bit of a disturbance between that career and then that mother.
Yeah.
Like it's like they're kind of, a mother's a big role.
Huge.
You got to
the most important role.
You got to stop working, all that stuff. So like do you feel like, we're not females, but do you feel like that's a struggle for them as well, as like
I've
choosing
worked
one
with,
or the other?
Yeah, I've worked with really successful 40-year-old females. Two types of grief they experience. One is when they get there, and then it's harder for them out there. I always say that if you're a woman in your 40s and you're single and haven't been locked down, is the same as being dead broke as a man in his 40s. Your options start to become limited. They do. That's just the law of the jungle. It's not the way that I would have it. And again, I really want to reiterate, there's no judgment towards people. I just talk about what's going on. It's not, if you're a 40-year-old successful woman, have at it. If you're happy, I support you 100%. And you're not a loser if you're a man that's broke at 40. Some men just aren't meant to be there. But it becomes more difficult out there. It does. It becomes tougher out there if you're in one of those two categories. And I think I've seen a lot of women get into their 40s and not have children, and it can be pretty devastating. It can be devastating. The other thing to watch out for women around that is when they say they get into their 30s and they go, I've got plenty of time to have kids and settle down. And then they waste their time with some dude that spends 5 or 10 years with them. He gets to 40, makes something of himself. He's now got access to the 23, 25-year-old women that are younger, more beautiful, and he ditches the woman. The grief that I've seen come from women that get left at 40, 45 by wasting their time with a guy that never commits. Oh, man, it's brutal to watch. It's the grief they experience is really rough. And guys will lead them on for years because we don't have to settle down. I could settle down in 10 years. You know, in my 40s, I go, I'll wait till 50 and keep having a good time. I don't want to. But these are realities that we have to deal with if we want to create a better society. I think it's fantastic that you're 29 having a family. I wish I was in the state of maturity at 29 to do it.
Yeah.
But mine just came a little later.
But
it's on the cards for you.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
if it's in a couple of years, that's cool. I didn't even think about it till I was 38. I was like, don't want kids prior to that. I just wanted to be super successful, purpose driven. That was it. Then it started to change for me because that is a natural thing. So I wish I'd had the maturity, the access to information, the right role models too, that could have guided me towards that at the time. Everything I do and everything I write is for the younger version of me that didn't have me, that needed me at the time. That's what I do.
Yeah.
So anyone that I can influence young, I'm like, get your purpose sorted, work on your internal psyche, separate from the mother, close your accounts and settle your accounts so you don't create chaos everywhere, make some money, find what you're meant to do and have a family.
Yeah, that's a purposeful life.
Summarized in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
What do you have, what do you feel you have left to experience and learn from your current partner?
Man, so much that, gentleness she's super gentle. And so she really helps to ground me. I didn't realize how valuable a woman was to have around. She makes me breakfast every morning. I take care of her. She doesn't work. And so I pay for everything. I give her a salary every week. Anything she needs, she gets, whether it's from acupuncture to preconception care, because we want to start trying to have a family soon. I pay for absolutely everything. She doesn't have to worry about anything financially. And for that, she looks after the home. I didn't realize how fucking amazing it is having a woman take care of the home, because it's this act of service. I'm big on acts of service, and I think most masculine men like that, where now I know where all my socks are because he would move my socks around before she came along, and all my washing is done, everything is in order. I bring order to life, she brings order to the home, and it's phenomenal. I get up and she makes me breakfast so I can go and work for the day and do stuff like this. I'll go home, she'll make me lunch. If she's at home, she might be out doing something. So the gift of it was to see, because I grew up with an extremely cruel and abusive mother, she repatterned my understanding and trust of the feminine, because there was part of me I didn't trust it. I didn't trust feminine. When I was working through my own stuff, I had a memory come up of my mum beating the shit out of me at 1.5 years old. And at that moment, I just closed down. And for 38, 39 years, I was shut down, man. And it was developed as a defense mechanism. And this is a good question, because the nature of this is how the psyche works in the form of defense mechanisms. My defense mechanism was, I don't want to attract in a woman like my mother that I have a child with, that then takes my child from me and I can't protect the child the way I needed protection growing up. Now, you could sit there and say, yeah, well, that's fair. You know, you went through a lot and whatever. I was using that as a way to keep women out unconsciously, to keep saying, well, I can't trust them, which that actually kept me tethered to my mother because my mother wouldn't want me to leave.
It.
Yeah, she's controlling it from an unconscious space. So my partner, she's fully helped me to lean into that, to see, you know, and I've always loved women. I've never hated women or anything like that, even though I've suffered more at the hands of women than men through my own choices and what happened to me as a kid, all of that. But she showed me what it's like to really like trust a woman and lean into that. And so she's been the greatest gift of my life. She's amazing, man. And when you have a woman that loves you and wants to understand you and take care of you as a man, it just brings the best out of me. It gives you energy. And I think every man should be aiming for that. You know, we're not meant to operate in isolation. Men and women are meant to be together. That's why we were made as complementary opposites.
Yeah, I feel
you know, it's fucking awesome, man. She's such an amazing woman.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's
powerful. Good relationship. Hey, it's so powerful.
Man, it's the best.
Yeah.
What were her goals and aspirations? Like, did she always picture herself to be
a mum?
Yeah. As a mum and like being in the home and stuff like this. Yeah.
Yep, she did.
Did she ever like have her own business sort of thing in the background? Or?
Yeah, she did. She worked pretty hard. She had her own stuff going on, but she had exes that couldn't fill the role of the real masculine pole in that. So she was with other guys that were like tried to make her the mother or tried to turn her into a boss babe. It just didn't work. And when we got together, she was working in a sales role, and I just watched by the end of the day how much it drained her. And I just said to her, you got to quit. So I'll give you whatever money they're paying you, I'll give to you each week, because this is draining you. And I don't want to see you like this. She would get to the end of the day at 5 o'clock, her eyes would be watery and blurry, and she'd just be like, you know, when someone's just taxed. And I'd go, all right, come on, we're going for a swim at the beach, we're going out and get some nature. And then in an hour she's a bit recharged. And I think it was within 2 weeks of us being together, I just said, you're quitting, and there's no saying this is not good for your health. If we're going to do this properly, I want you to experience what it's like as a woman to be taken care of by a man. And so we have to repattern.
And she was like on board with it, like
straight away. Yeah, she quit that day. So
if I can pick up on that, because I was saying like it's, you know, in some of the language and the way that it could be perceived from the audience potentially, and even myself, I was like, this is sounding like controlling, like, you know, like controlling. But then you said, I want you to be taken care of.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. You know what I mean?
Big time.
Allow me to take care of you,
Yeah.
not control you. Take care of you.
100%.
Yeah.
So one doesn't allow options or choices. That's what control is.
Yeah.
The other one, I'm like, do whatever you want. If you want to keep doing, she does womb harem massage, she does other things. I said, whatever you want to do, I'll finance it for you so you can do it. But this job is no good for you. It's wrecking your health. Her cycle was late. As soon as she got out of that, and I started to help her rebuild some internal structures for herself, her cycle went from 90 days down to like 37.
Wow, yeah.
That's an indicator of health.
Yeah.
She started to come back online. She was in a sleep deficit of 16 hours. Now she's back on track. You know, these are the things. So I'm like, I'll give you the money each week, do what you want. I paid for her to go to acupuncture, to go to a herbalist, to go to my naturopath, to go to her naturopath. All of that is part of it. So when I said, like, you got to quit this job, this isn't good, she could have stayed in it, but that wasn't really meant for her. And people can say, yeah, it's controlling or whatever, but at some point as the man, you got to go, I'm vetoing this decision. This is bad for you. And I'm going to give you the same money that you're getting from that. Plus, I mean, she was paying for her life out of the money she had from a job. Now I pay for everything on top of that. So it's basically disposable income. And not only that, you know, we've been on 2 or 3 trips together. We're going to Europe and Fiji later this year. I pay for all of that, you know.
Do you think a male should pay for everything for the female?
Yeah. I think get yourself in you should feel good doing it.
Yeah.
I love doing it, man. I she goes to pay for something. I'm like, don't even try this.
Don't even try.
Like, don't, you know, just, and it's in a joking kind of way for the people that are listening. I'm a provider, and if a woman doesn't want me to provide for it, that's cool. You're just not my woman.
And how have you found like the female like fall into their feminine? Maybe when you fully provide, where do you see the benefit in them? Do you really see them stepping into that feminine?
100%, because women, they think horizontally. Okay, so they have more difficulty prioritizing problems. So they'll go, I got to get the car washed, feed the kids, do a tax return and do something else, and all of these will be equal problems. Whereas men, we're sort of single focused. So you go, what's the biggest problem for the day? Okay, I'll sort that. Then number 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can assess things and contain them in an easier way. So the funny thing with my partner is that she's often like runs behind. And I'm like, come on, it's time to go. We've got to be on time like this. Yeah. And it's kind of a funny and cute kind of thing where it's like, all right, come on. And then if she's running a bit late, I'm like, if you're not ready by the time I get to the car, I'm going without you. It's these funny things just to get things in order, whereas people could see it as controlling. I see it as it's bringing order to the place to get things done in the right amount of time. And I think that when you have that, when she doesn't need to worry, this is containment, you reduce the number of choices that she would have to make as an adaptation to her femininity by becoming masculine, where she's got to handle everything. That's where the thinking comes in. If she's got all these problems, you'll watch a woman with a lot of problems, they get overwhelmed. They can multitask better than we can. So they'll be driving, doing their makeup, on the phone, reading the newspaper. So they can do all that really well, way better than men.
Yeah.
You ask me, she'll ask me a question while I'm typing a text and I'm spontaneously combusting. I can't do it, right? But one thing at a time, I'm amazing at. Multiple things, I'm not.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah.
When Georgia tells me that I can't multitask, and I say, yes, I can, because she'll be like, you're not listening to me. You're driving, you're fucking doing this, and then you're thinking about something else, blah, blah. Yeah. You're not listening to me. I'm like, yeah, I am. And then I would like pick up on the last few words that she strung together and, then half the time pretend that I was actually paying attention, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so for her to say I can't multitask, should I just accept that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more masculine to not be able to. If she's like, you're not listening to me and you're driving and doing something else, I would say she's probably right. Yeah. Because you can't listen to her and do the other things at the same time.
If you're multitasking, you're not giving anything your complete focus, so you're not going to get the best out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Men are more single focused. I think the stats on this when I was researching it, I think it's 67 or 77% of men are typically single focused and women are multitaskers, so the horizontal versus the vertical thinking. So it's in our biology, and it's the same as when men are emotional. Our nervous systems are denser. When they're walking trans from a woman to becoming a man, when they're giving them the hormones, they tell them that their pathways are going to be dulled emotionally because we're not as emotional as women. Our pathways are denser. I think it's 4 times or 10 times denser than a woman's, our pathways in our nervous system.
So
we're not meant to be. Yeah, women feel more. They're more driven by emotion. That's why they're more neurotic. High levels of emotion are correlated with high levels of neuroticism. So I saw this reel by a guy who was talking about him and his wife, and they bring their crushes. When they got a crush on someone, they sit and talk about it. That's sensation seeking. So when you're following your feelings and sensation seeking, it's got a higher correlation to neuroticism and thus a much higher predictor of failure in relationships. So this is where I say, go back and look at every decision you regret. It'll be done when it's overwhelming feelings based. And so neuroticism isn't a bad thing. It's proven scientifically and clinically that women have higher levels of neuroticism because they're more emotional and more feeling based. So they'll think something's going on and want to act on it because that's just the way they go. Whereas men are single focused, we're just a bit calmer, more grounded and stoic and more relaxed. And that's how we're meant to be.
So like us, you're talking, men are like logic and structure and that. When making a decision and it being intuitive, is that a feminine aspect coming out of you, or is an intuition also masculine? Like,
it depends how you define intuition. So if it's just someone throws a ball, if you throw a ball at him and he's not really looking, he goes like that. Is that your intuition? Is it your instinct? I think men are more instinctual. So what are my instincts telling me as opposed to my intuition? Intuition's a bit of it's a bit broad, it's a bit sort of esoteric. Is it gut feel? Is it the natural gift of the feminine? I think it's more feminine, or is it more masculine instinct to make a decision?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put them. Instinct sounds more masculine.
Yeah, instinct is a bit more so.
Instinct comes from like more knowing, I feel. Rather than, and intuitive feels like a feeling, doesn't it?
Well, that's why you say, you don't say, what's your intuition thinking right now? It's like, how does it feel intuitively? Yeah. It's more of a felt sense.
That's what I was trying to get at, was like when you're like, when you just know that's the right thing or that's the right decision, like
Yeah.
trying to see and maybe there's not logic in that,
Yeah.
but your instinct or intuition. So is that?
I would say that when you know something's right, there's almost no emotion to it.
Yeah.
So it would be more
yeah.
logical. So
Yeah,
you go,
okay.
that's not right. That doesn't sit right with me. That doesn't sound right. I'd say that's probably more your instincts because you're single focused on something. It's like hunting.
Yeah.
We're the predators. That's why our eyes are in the front of our head. So it's more like, no, this isn't right. It could be, you could say it might be a feeling, but I'd say it's more instinct for male and intuition for feminine.
Yeah, that's a good contrast because intuition sounds more feminine, doesn't it? But when you put it as like instinct, it kind of seems primal nature. Because I think that's I'm big on being instinctual. We can define it as that, and sort of not necessarily trying to like logically what's right. It's more what I feel is right. But I was wondering whether that's like male or female, but if it's instinctual.
I think logic is important, and I think logos or logic is more of the masculine, Sophia is more of the feminine. They're the two differences. But logic is really important, and I think logic is getting demonized in society because it's void of emotion. This is why Stoicism also gets a bad rap, when Stoicism they're the greatest thinkers ever we've got, ever. Yeah. You go read Marcus Aurelius' Meditations or Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. There's a reason 2,000 years later people are going, oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah, they're the greatest thinkers of our time. It's objective. Like my favorite Marcus Aurelius quote is, you don't have to be upset by this. You don't have to let this affect you. It's so simple. It's lasted thousands of years for a reason. There's another guy, Manly P. Hall. He wrote a book called The Secret History of All the Ages, I think it is, and he talks about the Stoics and the Skeptics and Pythagoras in that time. The ancient Greeks were a league of their own, the most intelligent.
So they were really good at like separating themselves from their emotion and like looking at it.
It was all logic.
Logic, yeah. That's like very powerful, I think. Because as you said, when the decisions that you regret is like when you're acting emotionally.
Always emotional, man.
Yeah.
Always.
Do you feel back in those times, would you assume that the women were more in their feminine?
100%. Definitely. I mean, I wasn't there at the time.
Do you reckon that's their natural laws and natural states?
Yeah, it's biological imperative. There's psychology and intellect and biology and instinct. And biology and instinct can be manipulated from a place of influence through the psychology and intellect. Like you look at the gender movement now, some people genuinely have gender dysphoria, and that's okay. But how quickly it ramped up when it was allowed to.
Dysmorphia?
Gender dysphoria, I believe it's called.
That?
Yeah.
What's that, sorry? Do you mind if I...
So people that actually have the clinical condition where they think they're the opposing sex.
Oh, right. Yeah,
right.
okay.
It was super low, like 0.2% or maybe 2%. It was really low. Yeah. Now, in English classrooms, I think it was 30 or 40%. That doesn't just happen overnight and just explode, but it was through psychological influence of children whose rational mind hasn't developed properly yet. Wow. And so when you look at it from that perspective, psychology and intellect can override biology and instinct. But there's a really good example. It's like if we dig the bones up 200 years later, you're going to know if it's a male or a female. So it doesn't matter what you tell yourself. I was having this discussion with a woman where she said that I'm worthless is an emotion. And I said, no, it's a cognitive assessment. And she goes, no, but it's tied to shame. And I said, so I could say that I'm a chicken based on, loneliness as an example. That doesn't mean I'm a chicken just because I say it, nor is it an emotion. And she was saying that because I feel worthless, right, the feeling comes from a different part, but you separate the two. I'm worthless can only be instituted within based on a comparison next to something else that you feel has more value than you. So it's a cognitive assessment rather than an emotional state. There's only a couple emotions, but we went back and forward with it. And I said, see, this is the problem. You're trying to make everything emotional rather than logical. And what I did is I just overrode your silly emotional argument with logic. And now you don't like it. And she didn't like it. So emotional once again. So you can't really have a dialogue with people that are coming from a really emotional place. This is why people argue.
Because they've seen it all through that lens.
Yeah.
That emotional lens.
It's myopic. Logic is panoramic. Emotion is myopic. That's why it's called seeing red. You know, when you're emotional, you're angry. It's like you see in cartoons where the guy's head is red and steam coming out of the ears because heat rises in the body, goes to the head, and it just goes outwards. There's nothing cooler about that. And so in thermodynamics, when there's more heat in a system, so when people are heated and they're hot and they're angry, particles need to move faster and the system breaks down more quickly. So when someone's in an argument, the more heat in the system, the quicker it starts to decay and break down. When particles are cooler, they move slower. That's why when you're calm, you slow down a little bit. It's a little bit easier to engage with someone, to try to understand someone. The calmest person is always the safest person to be around, not the most emotional.
So how do you go about, advice for becoming less emotional or emotionally tired and becoming calmer? Do you have practices and stuff that you do?
Dissolving the defense mechanisms in the subconscious is the way, because there's a part of your identity that you're trying to hold on to in the form of a trigger, which then projects it outwards, which makes you emotional. So if I say something, it hits a part of you that exists in history. That comes up, the feelings come up and then go outwards. The two weapons that the ego uses are feelings and projection. So feelings come up, bam, it's outward. Instead of doing that, what happens is when you resolve your history, then that part doesn't get activated. You can be with someone that disagrees with you and go, oh, that's really interesting. I'd really like to know more about that. And they're like, what? I was just blasting you. Like, can you say that again for me? Instead of getting emotional about it, where emotion just tries to make someone else wrong most of the time so you can be right. It's really all it does. Anger is a boundary setter to stay away from me, and I'm going to make you wrong for what you did. Logic doesn't do that. Being calm doesn't do that. So that's why I say always seek to understand the person. You start to ask questions. Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Can you explain that to me again? Or if, your woman insults you, go, can you repeat that for me? Just say that back. I didn't quite get it. This one you're saying, You take 7-second breath in. I do this with my partner when she says something, and she's never abusive at all.
Yeah.
But I used to do it just because I like to see a reaction, where she might just say, hey, what are you up to today? And I'm like, and then I just look down and she goes, so what are you up to today? So I'm just thinking about what you said. And she's like, what do you mean? like that.
Just
and
processing
so
it,
just processing. Yeah. So just take a deep breath in for 7 seconds through the nose and just go, I'm just going to go think about what you said in an argument. It's a very powerful method to do that. Just go, I'm going to go for a walk and I'll come back to you on that.
Get calm, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the best way to do it. So you're doing it now.
It's aligned with your value of peace.
Yeah, man. It's like if I'm peaceful internally, the less distortion, the more ability I have to affect my surrounding.
Yeah.
And so my job is when my partner is feeling upset. This is another thing for the men too. Don't try and fix a woman when they're upset. Most men get threatened by an emotional state. Whereas my partner was upset recently, not at me or anything. She was just having a day. And I just held her let her cry it out because she's very sensitive. And then I got her to start laughing. No, I didn't say start laughing, but I started to crack jokes. And she actually said, she goes, I think that was the longest you've ever taken to make me laugh after I'd been upset. It was like 4 minutes or something. And so I'm always making her laugh when she's upset. Like I hold her, I let her get it out. That lasts a minute or two. And then I start cracking jokes.
Yeah.
That's how you lead a woman out of it. So different topic, but leading a woman is leading her emotionally. It's not telling her what to do. It's making her want to follow you through good decisions, but it's leading her emotionally. Women love to feel something. There's a saying I heard ages ago, you can make a woman feel anything except bored. A woman feels bored, she's going to want stimulation somewhere else. So if you can take a woman out of being really upset and have her laughing in the space of a few minutes, you got it down, man. And that's what every man should work towards. Like it's good. And my partner Joelle loves it. She's like, man, it's so good. And now she goes, if she's upset, why aren't I laughing yet? Because she knows I have the ability to do that. You can only do that through having capacity in your nervous system, of space in your nervous system where you're not taking it personally.
Yeah, good stuff there.
Yeah,
for sure.
Super simple, but just not that easy.
Yeah, it's not that easy, and it's like, working on yourself. And what you're sort of talking about before, like those triggers that come up, of how do people become calmer, and you were saying stuff about the subconscious. So realising that those triggers are a great time to learn.
Yeah.
You know, you get triggered and then it's all of a sudden it's like, all right. And then you can, like, that can be a time to really understand why you're triggered and that. And then the next time that happens, maybe you won't flare up as much or something will happen if someone triggers you.
Generally, if your woman's triggering you, it's because your mum said something similar to that you haven't yet resolved. And then you want to make her responsible for it. But if you get a trigger and you actually relax, trigger is an opportunity for expansion to understand yourself more. That's the way I said. I'm like, why am I feeling this way about this? Why is this bothering me? You know, and then run through that if you have to for a day, and don't bring it up with your woman. Then if it's still there the next day, you've got more work to do on yourself to excavate whatever's there. If it's still really bothering you, if she's done something that's really upset you, maybe bring it up in the relationship check-in, but I always say just leave it for a bit and it'll start to become clear. Like I barely take anything to my partner because it just goes.
Time as well. Time heals.
Yeah. Time is nature's nurse. And so if you sit on it and just go, okay, I'm not going to bring it, she starts to trust you more. No woman wants a man dumping all over all the time.
I think that's such a powerful process as well to be able to like... Yeah, something, you know, whether it's relationship or whatever it is, but something comes up, doesn't sit well in you, but you can kind of just shoulder it and keep going and still try to act authentically, even though things are not, your internal state's not peaceful as. And then, I think that's a masculine trait, right?
It's capacity.
Yeah.
That's how you develop capacity. Capacity is super important as a male because when everything goes wrong, the center man is the one that holds it for everyone. They don't roll over and capitulate and give up and go, I can't deal with this anymore. I've seen men like that, man. And they destroy families. They fuck up their children. They abuse their wives. They abuse everyone around them because they're not solid. You know, solidity is really important in masculinity. Solidity, capacity, resiliency, understanding, gentleness as well, protective, sacrifice. These to me are typical masculine traits. And I don't care what society tells me how to be, I'm going to fucking run those things until my last breath.
Yeah,
No,
nice.
I don't care.
Yeah, that's cool.
I just don't care.
I have like those times where like something might trigger me or something, and you know I bottle it up, I store it. I'm like, this is for me. I'll take this away. I'll allow myself to process this while it's coming up. Blah blah blah, and then try and give myself the time to come back and then bring it up on another occasion once I've like sort of processed and stuff like that. And the problem I have with my partner is she's super intuitive, so she does sense that something's up. And I guess I just need to say in those moments like, hey, I'm still working on what it is or whatever.
Yeah.
I'll come back to you when it is.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's been times in the past where I'll just like bury it and pretend as if it's not, you know, it's nothing or whatever, and then like tell myself, oh, it's nothing, you don't need to bring it up, but I'm still holding on to resent for it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, later down the line, and then it sort of plays out and balls out, and it's like, yeah. I guess the process with, you know, and then also there's the fact of like, oh shit, we've moved past this now. I don't want to have to bring this back up. You know, and then get back into this sort of tangent that we're on. So, yeah, I just that's more like a self-reflective process for myself. But how would you approach that situation better?
Yeah, cool. So I try to understand why it's affecting me first. So what you said there is, I just push it down. I go, yeah, cool, I'll deal with this later, which isn't really dealing with it. You know, it's going to come back. So if you go, what did she say? Where have I heard that before? What am I actually experiencing going through now? Men's biology typically shuts down in the face of a problem so we can handle the problem, so we don't get emotional. And so when you're pushing it down and then it's waiting to come back later, introspection rather than avoidance is more important. And so when you go to your woman and you say, and she wants to talk about it, go, babe, firstly, I want you to know it's got nothing to do with you. Okay? And I love you and I appreciate your care, but I'm just going to handle this one on my own. And she will feel understood. She'll be considered. There'll be an emotional flavor to it, which is like, just know that I love you. It's got nothing to do with you. I'm just going to work through this on my own. And then you go away, you do the work, you excavate. Just Socratic thinking. Kids are really good at it. It's like clean your teeth to a kid. Why? Because you need healthy teeth and gums. Why? Well, so your teeth don't fall out. Why? Because then you can't eat. Why? Well, then you'll die. Why? Fuck. You know? So if you institute that within yourself, like why, like become fascinated with you, rather than the place that it's coming from externally. Go, why did this bother me? What's going on here with me? You know, why? You know, even in an exchange that my partner and I had, I let her keep going once, and I said, that was my fault that this kept going, this conflict, because I didn't say that's enough and walk away, and that's what I should have done. That's my fault. I kept letting you go, and then I kept responding instead of just going, no, I'm out. I'm going to come back to you in half an hour. That's my fault, and I'm sorry for that. And she's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I'm self-aware, man.
Yeah. So that's what I would recommend doing with that, because it's within you. Whatever's within you is attempting to be liberated. And so when you're not letting it be liberated, it's just going to sit there, and it might feel okay because the energy will be released on some level and it'll work through you, but the root of it, of what's gone on, hasn't yet been dealt with. So, and that's part of your identity. And so the whole game is to dissolve parts of your identity. It's letting that part go. And the ego wants to hold on to the identity. The soul is trying to push through it so it can come out into the world. So it's like the ego pushes down, life tries to pull the soul out. And I always say this to people, I'm like, if you don't deal with your shit, life will draw it out of you like poison from a wound. And it will end up in sickness, divorce, death, something tragic.
Yeah.
We all have to deal with this because life wants us to become whole. That's the only game, is to become whole, like you guys have. It's a wholeness center. When I rocked up, I'm like, fuck yeah, this is cool. That's what it's all about, is becoming whole. And so when you look at that, when there's an aspect you're pushing down, you're resisting through tension, which then creates suffering, the process to wholeness. And that doesn't mean that you need to make your woman responsible for it or even share it. You go, I'm just going through something, babe. I love you. And when I'm done with it, I will reflect and let you know what I went through.
Yeah.
Because then it's not her problem. It's just you've handled it. She'll love that. Women love it when men go and handle their stuff, and then they can come back and go, this is what I went through. This is where it came from. Now I understand. I'm just letting you know. Yeah. They fucking love it when you can do that. And they go, man, I can trust this guy because he's reliable.
Totally. Yeah, and he handles his shit.
Yeah. That's it. I've said this for ages. Women don't really want to hear I love you so much. They want to hear I'll handle it.
Yeah.
That's they're three more important words. Yeah, I'll handle it. Or I've got you are the other three. Yeah. So it's like, I'll handle it. I've got you. I love you.
Yeah, right. That's cool. With that feeling of like, you like wholeness as well. What is the feeling of whole to you? Like, what is that to you?
Yeah, so there's an absence of distortion. So I'm not trying to be anyone. I'm the same in front of everyone. You know, like my online presence, I could take an easier path, man. I could take a way easier path and be like, it's all about love and we've got to protect this and do that and whatever. But I'm like, man, I got to put people in it because then I'm not being authentic. So the way that I see it, there's a saying which is the longest journey you take is from the head to the heart. I'm not really in agreement with that. What I think is where you merge the head and the heart by collapsing the throat, right? So you collapse this avoidance of expression here. So then you become fully self-expressed. Express means to release pressure. When you're suppressing, it means to put pressure down. You guys know when you have more weights put on, that's pressure that you put on, right? It's pressure that you put on the system. Authenticity and wholeness is really an absence of pressure because you're not trying to be anyone that you're not. So when you fully self-express, that's how I get into these, you know, where you laughed at one before or like you're like, fuck, this guy's on a roll here. Yeah. It just comes naturally. I don't prepare for things. Like I said, just off camera, I said, I don't really like to prepare because we miss the magic of the flow that comes through. Because I'm not trying to be anything other than what I am in that moment. You know, and that's authenticity. So to reach authenticity, where are you being inauthentic? What isn't you? And then it expresses through the throat. And so when I find I don't want to share something, I'm like, oh man, I know I'm going to cop so much shit for this. I'm like, I know I have to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and then I just go, I'm not reading the comments on that one. I'm going to leave that one alone.
Yeah, nice.
Because the message is more important than the distortion that it creates in that. So that's to me what authenticity is, where it's you're the same in front of everyone, you know. And I mean, online, people don't see, like, I'm super playful and fucking stupid and a practical joker and, you know, really like that. And not a lot of people see that, but it's not for everyone at the same time.
That's right.
You know? So that's where I see authenticity is, where I don't care if people like me, love me, hate me, whatever. I'm cool with me. So I'm good with that.
That's awesome, brother. Man, that was probably a great way to wrap it up for sure.
Sweet.
I think, well, done a good time here.
Yeah, no, it was a good one. I could keep going.
Yeah, mate.
We'll be here all day.
There's plenty of, Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Speaking into all that and, just speaking your truth. And there's plenty of gems and lessons to sit on and digest as well after that. There was a lot in that, which was cool. Looking forward to going back and listening to that one as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, beautiful way to define like wholeness. You know, when you're feeling whole, it's like you're loving all those parts of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think just the fact that you resonate with it, and I can sense that you have that as a part of one of your programs or something. You said your path to wholeness or something.
Yeah, it's one I'm actually starting it in 2 days for men to join, but I'll be opening it up for more men. But it's going through this process to wholeness.
Yeah.
And it's a journey. It's not for the faint heart.
Yeah.
So I've interviewed some people for it. When I get a bit of this guy's not ready for it, or just shatter him too hard. But it's, the guys that really want to affect change, the masculine men that are like, there's something missing, I'm ready. It's like, let's go. So I'm going to be running it openly for any man that wants to join. And it's me working with men to excavate any of the unconscious mother to go from boy psychology to man psychology, which is wholeness.
Beautiful.
Yeah, nice. So where can people mainly find you and get access to your work?
Instagram, Pure Jaguar. I've got a content guy that's doing TikTok and other things, but I don't pay attention to those ones. Instagram's the main thing where I engage.
Yeah.
Pure Jaguar, Pure Jaguar.
Cool.
Legends.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time,
Thank you so
mate.
much.
Man, thank you
Appreciate
guys.
Epic
that.
stuff.
Awesome.
Love your work.
Really
Love your
appreciate
doggo.
Yeah,
Love
he's
what
cool.
you do.
Nice,
Epic
Jake.
stuff. Thanks, dudes. Have an epic rest of your day or night, evening, wherever you are, and we'll be back at you next week with another one.